complete our transition to Afghan responsibility for that country's security. Our troops will come home. Our combat mission will come to an end. And we will work with the Afghan government to train security forces and sustain a counterterrorism force which ensures that al-Qaeda can never again establish a safe haven to launch attacks against us or our allies.
The suggestion that we're somehow close to a determination or conclusion in that negotiation is incorrect.
Given the current political situation and the relationship between the administration and Karzai, I would say right now it's not a bluff and that it is on the table. And if given the opportunity, the administration will pull out of Afghanistan sooner rather than later.
The question is less the speed at which we leave than do we leave a residual force behind. That, I think, is the key issue. And I hope, I mean, according to the reporting, it looks as if the president could be reacting emotionally. I hope he's not to the interactions he's had with Karzai. Now, I understand Karzai is admittedly unstable, likely bipolar, and terminally ungrateful. Let's stipulate that. But Karzai is not forever. The Islamists in Afghanistan and Pakistan are going to be there for a very long time. And the president has to make a decision not based on Karzai and not based on emotion or personal resentment, but is it in the strategic interest of the United States to retain a force in Afghanistan that will be able to monitor and to preempt and to attack al-Qaeda remnants or the Taliban or the radical Islamists in Pakistan who are out there and who want to kill Americans? If the answer is yes, he has to put away his feelings and decide that we're going to do it. If the answer is no, then it shouldn't matter what's going on inside his head.
I was told that that video teleconference was an unmitigated disaster. Both presidents went after each other, with Karzai threatening on the one hand to cut off relations with the United States because we're talking to the Taliban, and with the president trying to get his agenda through to Karzai and Karzai not listening. But if that teleconference is going to drive our policy, then we have a bad, or at least a weak policy.
Quickly, are U.S. troops in Afghanistan in some fashion after 2014?
I hope so.
I hope not.
I think so.
I was looking for a yes or no, but I'll take whatever you give me. I think so. That's all right.
If the president is really Mr. Cool, and if he said in the past, as you showed in that clip, that we need to have a presence in there, then he'll keep them there.
The process is ex parte, which means it's one-sided, and that's not a good thing. And secondly, under the FISA Amendments Act, the FISA court now approves programmatic surveillance, and that I submit and will discuss for a few minutes, I do not consider to be a judicial function.
In my experience, which is long with the FISA court, folks don't realize that it's a group of independent federal judges who sit and operate under a statutory regime to review requests by the government to use certain authorities to gather information, and it is anything but a rubber stamp.
I want our spooks to be listening on al-Qaeda, but I don't want our spooks listening in on our calls unless there is, a national security reason that rises to a certain level. I think we have to have a FISA court. It's good to have a review. You cannot have unfettered executive action on this. But the problem is not the FISA court. I think the emphasis here is completely wrong. It isn't as if these 11 independent judges all of a sudden want to aggrandize their power and run the national security state and decide what's allowed and what's not. Yes, their rulings are broad. Yes, they have allowed almost everything. But the problem is the Congress, all it has to do today is to pass a new statute and define the standard as, it's the Congress that has decided that the gathering of information from everybody and then looking for the patterns where you know that 99% of the information is not for anybody who's under suspicion is okay. If that isn't okay, the Congress ought to stipulate in the statute and the FISA court will rule accordingly. This is an issue that Congress has to address. It's not anything that the FISA judge is responsible for independently.
all of these judges are approved by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. They're appointed. They're not the President, they're not Congress, they're just appointed by, and in this case, all of them have been appointed by Chief Justice John Roberts.
That's why we elect representatives.
But you can make that
to
case of
take
all judges, which
responsibility.
is why you have to have different people making cases, and then judges are expected to be able to rule on that.
Quickly.
The answer is not to abolish the FISA court and not to have every national security request turn into a Trayvon Martin trial with, the lawyers on either side. I think you trust the 11 judges, but let the Congress define the contours of what's allowed very specifically, and that solves the problem.
This has been a Sunfish production.